huge startup line. Welcome to co-founder of CPROP, Adam Koehler.
Yeah!
All right, let's do this. All right, so we usually start kind of with some fun stuff, just kind of get to know you stuff. So Adam just came back from Minnesota, which is a very, one of the most important trips of his life. He just recently celebrated a birthday, so happy birthday Adam.
Thanks.
And tell us what that had to do with your birthday and why you were in Minnesota. I thought you were like
so
kind
yeah,
of like blockchain conference or something.
No.
Kind of...
Yeah, you think it would be cool, but
no, it's very cool.
I mean, we mainly when I travel, I go somewhere like once a month at least, and it's mainly around blockchain or something like that. So, we literally went to Minnesota just to go to a restaurant called Zantigo. They got bought out by Taco Bell back in the day, and it was like something that me and my girlfriend were like, "Hey," when we first met. You remember Zantigo? Yeah, it was so good. They had 2 kinds of cheeses on their tacos, and it was awesome. And there's 4 of them left. She looked it up, and there was 4 of them left just in Minnesota. So we just flew up there to go to eat Zantigo and came back.
Nice. Very cool. Very cool. Well, hope it was a good trip.
And then the Minnesota State Fair was going on, and
I saw that.
it was crazy. It was like 2 million people go to this thing. It was just overwhelming. So I had cheese curds and a bunch of stuff that I shouldn't have probably ate, but whatever. Right. Things that I don't even recognize as food, but whatever.
So we were just talking about health stuff too, so forget about all that.
Yeah, I know, exactly. Yeah, I starved myself after that.
Outside this trip. Well, cool. Well, welcome back. You've been on a terror trip traveling, so you've been to, Korea not too long ago. Was it Lisbon? Or
Kiev, Ukraine.
Kiev, Ukraine.
London, Dublin, Munich, Zug, Switzerland, Zurich, Barcelona, Ibiza, I don't know, a bunch of places. DC, true, DC, yeah.
Some folks down there.
Yeah. Surprisingly, there's a lot of Ohio people
really
at the chamber, the National Chamber, which is one of the most powerful lobby groups in the country, and it's pretty much run by Ohio people, so it was cool. So I was like, when are you going to come to Cincinnati and help us with stuff?
Gotcha. Very cool.
So I tried to make them feel guilty.
Very cool. And what was that in DC? So that was
so there was a blockchain conference that we sponsored. So Reversed Out, my ad agency, and CPROP, our new company, we sponsored a blockchain event, and some folks from Walmart were there, some people from IBM, a lot of other companies that support blockchain tech, and they were just giving examples of how they're utilizing blockchain for mostly supply chain.
Gotcha.
Yep.
That's very cool. So we'll get to CPROP in a minute, but before we get to what you're doing now, I'd love to kind of dig into your backstory and how you got doing what you're doing. So you're talk about Adam as a adolescent, as a kid growing up in Price Hill. Was there anything that you did that in hindsight you look back that was sort of a tell or an indicator of at least an entrepreneurial mindset or a desire to be in entrepreneurship? Do you have anybody in your family that
I had a lemonade stand when I was a kid, and then I got the cops called on me because some dude's grandma got mad because he spent all of his ice cream truck money on my lemonade, and when he still wanted ice cream, she was like, "Where'd your $5 go?" And she's like, "I spent it on." He's like, "I spent it on the lemonade stand," and then the cops literally came and tried to shut my lemonade stand down, but I threw a protest and they just let it go. So yeah, that was my first endeavor, and then I lived on a street really close to a Sohio station. If anybody remembers Sohio, it was like prior to BP. And I used to go up there, and my mom really didn't care what we did. And so we just walked up there, and we would buy packs of lemon heads and Boston baked beans and stuff like that, and Red Hots for a nickel. And then I'd come back down with my red wagon, and I would sell them to my friends on the street who couldn't leave the street for a quarter.
Gotcha,
so I made my money.
You had jurisdiction.
And then I'd buy baseball cards with it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
So back then, did you know the word entrepreneurship or anything like that?
No. Everybody just hustled. In Price Hill, I was just nobody had any money. So everybody was trying to grind and just make money any way they could. And, a lot of people did stuff they weren't supposed to do.
Yeah.
Break into your car and steal your radio and then trade it for something else and trade that for something else and try to come up that way. But I think growing up, one of the biggest things for me was not really entrepreneurial related, but it was just staying away from negative stuff, staying away from negative influences. To this day, I don't drink. You know, my dad was drug addict, alcoholic, so I just never, my mom was like, if you want to be like your dad, start drinking. So I just never did it. And now I'm addicted to Starbucks, which shows me that if I had started drinking, I'd have really like a serious problem. So, I just never did that. Never got anybody pregnant when I was like 14, you know, the typical stuff
you
that,
get pregnant when you're 14.
I know, I didn't want to get, you know, well, I look at like a little pregnant now, right? 2 months, maybe 3 months. But, so just staying away from like the normal stuff that like, I don't have any felonies. So that's good.
That's good.
Stayed away from that. But, you know, you look back and you're like, I mean, I still got friends who live in the same neighborhood and are doing the same stuff and complaining every day that they can't get ahead or they can't do this or somebody's holding them back for something or other. And it's just like, bro, I know why you're back. Like, you just didn't start. Like, you messed up. Like, you know, you did things that you should have done. So I think takeaway when I look back is like, man, I'm kind of glad my dad was an alcoholic because it kept me from like going down that same path. And, you know, we were always broke. So I hated being broke. Like, I hated being poor. And I was like, I need to do something to get better. And I went to performing arts. Mm-hmm. So the good,
talk about that. So
good thing about performing arts was it was either that or Dater and West High. So I started at performing arts when I was in the 5th grade.
Okay.
And at the time, I would have had to go to Dater. And Dater had the most suspensions and expulsions out of any school, believe it or not, any school in the country at the time. Yeah.
Really?
So I didn't want to go there. And my mom was like, you know, try out for performing arts. So we tried out. And me and my brother both made it into performing arts. And I did drama and art up till the 10th grade. And then you had to pick a major, one major. And then I just kept with art now in an ad agency. So, you know, I could have headed down like one path, right? Yeah. But there were opportunities. I got lucky, you know, just to go to performing arts because it's a diverse school.
Right.
I mean, you had all different kinds of people there. Like typically when I try to explain performing arts, it's like the kids that would get beat up in a normal high school were cool.
Gotcha.
Like if you like to sing and like skip down the hallway, like you're like the man there, right? But like you would get tackled and thrown into a locker at a normal high school, right? But there's no sports, right? It was just like, it was all like, you know, Nick Lachey, you know, I went to school with him and Drew and my buddy punched Drew in the nose. And then there's just a couple like, you know, it's just the diversity of the school, the difference in people, the difference in economics. Like there were people from, you know, Hyde Park going there. And then there were people from the projects and over the Rhine before they tore them down.
Right. So
it was like a mixed kind of like school. And there's people who played hacky sack at ultimate frisbee, basketball, football, you know, it's like everybody just kind of at recess were doing different things, skateboarding. It was just such a diverse school. Plus it got me out of my neighborhood.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Got me away from the influences.
Question, what was the best part, your favorite part that you had?
My least favorite part was that they didn't have any sports.
Okay.
So
like your when you were performing, like your
drama. Role, I actually didn't like drama at all.
Okay.
I hated it. Like I just took it because they stuck me in it. And when you tested SCPA, like whatever you're good at, they just kind of put you in. And I've never, like when I was a kid, like I never got good at like systems, which is probably like, we never knew how to like do things. Like we didn't have to go through like the process. It's hard to explain. It's kind of like when you're poor and like you have no network. It's why most people stay poor. It's because they're not connected to anything. They don't even know, like, if you wanted to be a lawyer, they didn't even know the word lawyer. Like, they didn't know how do you become a lawyer because they didn't even know to search it in the first place, right? Gotcha. So it's kind of like the same situation was kind of happening with me. But, you know, there's a lot of stuff that, you know, you could do and a lot of things that I think, you know, benefited me early on. And SCPA, I think, being one of those things, you know?
Sounds like just the exposure to
different things, I mean, I was doing Shakespeare in the 5th grade. Yeah. Here I am, like, dude from Price Hill, and, like, I go home, and, like, my friend's like, oh, some dude shot at me. And I'm like, I did Shakespeare today. Like, it's just crazy. Yeah. So, I don't know. It's, just one of those things. And, you know, I stayed in it, and now, you know, I'm not afraid to get up on a stage and talk to people, and, you know, sometimes too much. But
that's cool.
Yeah.
We're fortunate for that today. So, take me transition that to school, what you studied, what were you thinking at that time? Were you thinking of, you know, at some point starting something, or just what was the career track in your? Yeah,
so you know, I went. My major was commercial art.
Okay.
So my art teacher at the time, in the 10th grade, you decide at SCPA. This is back in the day. You decided, do I want to be a fine artist or do I want to be a commercial artist? And my commercial art teacher said, do you want to make money?
Gotcha.
I said, yeah. He said, don't be a fine artist.
Gotcha.
So I decided to go into commercial art, and then they had Art Institute of Pittsburgh brought some people in and presented this 3D animation course. And at the time, like Toy Story had just come out, and I was like, oh man, it'd be so dope to do that, right? So I just went there, and I didn't know other school, like I didn't know what else to do, you know? I just like, I didn't know what I wanted to be, but I knew I was good at art. So, you know, they came in, and I'm going to Pittsburgh, and you know, they hate me in Pittsburgh because I'm a big old Bengals fan. So
Gotcha.
yeah, it's all bad.
That's very, very cool. So take us from studying commercial art and finish that, because you went from Pittsburgh to Minnesota, right?
Yeah, but later on. So I finished my degree. I'd never gotten a bachelor's degree because it was a private art school. So I just got my associates. And then I went back in, I think, 2000 maybe, and got a bachelor's degree in marketing. I remember calling somebody at LPK, which is here in town, and I was like, hey, you know, I've got this design background and everything else. What else would I be able to pair that with? And he was like, get a marketing degree. He's like, learn about the business, learn about how the business gets done, which was good because that led me into doing some other things later on.
Right. Gotcha. I'm sure that's helped you.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Up to today before. So talk about, so you know, probably fast forward some time. Where was it time-wise or age-wise when you got connected with Austin and the folks with dotloop?
So I was kind of on the path to like the 9-to-5 job life forever until I retire when I'm 65, which now I look back at that and I'm like, I'd just fucking hang myself. But, you know, that's where I was headed, right? And I was working in an ad agency. If anybody knows Possible Worldwide, downtown. Actually, Peter back there, I was working with his wife. at Possible, and then later on Rockfish. But when I was at Possible, it was Bridge Worldwide back then, and I met Matt and Austin, and I was already buying rental properties over on the west side mostly. So I had like 11 rental properties or something like that, and I was kind of doing that on the side, and it was super stressful because I'm like renting a Section 8, and like I got all these hillbillies tearing up my properties and like driving me absolutely insane. So I had that real estate background. And Austin came up with the idea for dotloop. He was, I think, 19 at the time. And he was like, why am I faxing these forms back and forth? Why isn't there a digital solution for this? And he called up Matt because Matt used to work with his mom. Matt's this unbelievable technology guy. Unbelievable. Java guy, just crazy good. Everything tech. He brought him in, and Matt's like, man, we need a designer and a UX guy. So he came up to me at my desk. He was like, Adam, I know you're into real estate. You want to join this startup? And this is like 1997, 98? No, or sorry, 2008. Oh, 98, 2008. I'm getting old. So 2008, 2007, 2008. So I'm like, yeah, why not? And, you know, I think that was early startup world, like when startups were just becoming a thing, you know, nobody really, there weren't a lot of funding mechanisms out there, like Centrifuge didn't exist, Cincy Tech didn't exist, like nothing existed. It was like you had to find rich people and convince them to just give you money, right? And Austin was really good at that, by the way. So he had this great story. He bought his first house, I think, when he was 18, started dotloop when he was 19. We all hung out at a Panera Bread for probably 18 months. Up in Clifton. That was our first office. And we would just meet, and then like Amway people would constantly be coming up to us. I don't know why Amway. It's like Amway, like Panera Bread and Amway people. I don't know. They got some kind of hidden secret deal or something, them and the Illuminati. But they just kept coming up to us, man. And so we just sat there and we just like planned out the platform. And I'm telling you, dotloop would not exist right now. Would have never got off the ground if it wasn't for Matt. Because, well, for Matt and Austin really, but Matt, because has anybody tried to get an idea off the ground and convince a developer to do it for equity? It doesn't happen anymore. It just does not happen. Like, they want to get paid. And ideas are a dime a dozen, right? It's like anybody can just come up with an idea and say, hey, I got this great idea. It's going to revolutionize shit. And like, you should just do it for equity. And they're going to laugh at you because they got a family, they got stuff to do. And we got lucky because Matt bought Fifth Third when it dipped down to $1.50.
Oh, gotcha.
So he was living off of that for a little while. And yeah, man, we just busted it out and, you know, racked our brains. It used to be called MLS Contracts, which was the worst name. So then me and Austin were playing mini golf in his office one day, and we were like, dot, loop, connect the dots and keep you in the loop. And it had 7 letters so we could make it the phone number. and it was available. The .com was available, so we just it was it.
So when was that?
Yeah.
When was that changed to dotloop?
So that was a little later. So once we got the product built, we tested it with Remax. So we found a Remax company here locally, and they were super helpful. They put their people on it, and they actually let them use it. And I think we gave them a little equity. I can't remember. Austin was giving out equity back then. So, we gave them a little equity, something, but we needed it because we tested all the bugs.
Yeah.
And it was just crazy. So Matt and Austin both went full time with it. Okay. Didn't pay themselves for months. And I had 11 rental properties, and 2 or 3 of them would be vacant. And then I'd have to put a bunch of money into it because people tore the cabinets off and stuff. Yeah. So I'm like, I can't not get paid. So you guys go full time, and I'm going to just essentially be the marketing department. Gotcha. So Reversed Out, which I started at the same time I started dotloop, then became more or less the marketing department of Reversed Out of dotloop.
Was Reversed Out just you, or did you have
just me at the time? Gotcha. Yeah, it was just me. I was just freelancing, and then I was also freelancing at Possible at the same time, and then doing some freelance work for some other smaller agencies. Gotcha. And then Reversed Out eventually turned into more or less a off-site creative department and marketing department for companies that don't have the HR resources to manage a marketing department. They don't know how to put the teams together in a marketing department. They don't know the difference between a front-end developer and a back-end developer and a designer. Gotcha. So it's just hire us and we'll do it all for you.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
So
let's talk about that. So Reversed Out. So you just touch on that real quick, so for everybody, just make sure. Tell us about what Reversed Out does. So it's just that essentially. Like we work with a lot of ad agencies. Okay. So there's only so much talent in Cincinnati, right, and there's a lot of projects floating around. And actually, Steve Weathers over there, he's in our space at CovWorx, and he's one of our developers. And anytime anyone needs like a tech roadmap done, he's the guy to go to. So like I pull in people like Steve. And I've got other people who rent in the CovWorx space, like Lampros Labs, and they hire developers from schools. So Northern Kentucky, UC, juniors and seniors mostly that are in the tech field, and we connect them at Lampros with startup projects that need to get a prototype together. So you don't have a ton of money. You can't go to an agency and spend $250 an hour. So you go to Lampros, you spend $50 an hour. They pretty much team you up with a developer. I think we got a Lampros developer in here. Yep. And they team you up with a developer. And the idea is, in an ideal perfect world, right? Kind of like a socialist Bernie Sanders world. What we would do is, we would pair these guys up with a startup, build their prototype. The startup goes out, sells the prototype, gets funded, comes back and hires this kid away. Gotcha.
So we're keeping people in Cincinnati, developers, talented developers in Cincinnati, plus giving them real world projects to work on that they normally wouldn't do through their traditional classes.
That's great.
So
that's an experience with Lampros.
Yeah. So for sure.
Good guys. So okay, back to the dotloop story. So 2008, you said was 2008, 2009 or so launched.
Yep.
And acquired in 2016. So that's a lot of.
It was August 2015. Yeah, a lot happened. So we almost died.
Yeah, so
5-6 times, something like that.
I know a couple. There's probably more than that. A couple of near-death experiences.
Crazy.
Take us through some of those.
Just running out of money. So the thing where we hit a home run at was, and here's the problem: like we kept raising money. So every time we raised money, we would burn through it. The deals got shittier for us, right? Gotcha. Like the deals never got better with investors. They just kept getting worse. And we kind of go back to the same like pod asking for the same money. And Austin managed most of the fundraising and everything and did an awesome job at it because he kept us alive. But the home run was we had $400,000 in the bank. We spent $300,000 on the National Association of Realtors conference.
Oh.
$300,000. We got the car, the actual car from Back to the Future. And this whole thing was like, go to the future, quit faxing things. It's crazy that you're doing this. So we got the car, we get set up this whole booth like right in the middle. Ended up leading to, I think it was like a $7 million deal that Keller Williams signed with us. But it wasn't even about the money. It was about the exposure and the credibility they brought. So Keller Williams at the time, I think, had 80,000 real estate agents. If you guys don't know what dotloop did, we just took all of the paper contracts you signed when you wanted to purchase a house, and we digitized them all for every brokerage. So right now, 50% of every real estate transaction in the United States, the document is written on dotloop. And over the course of time, it's over $4 trillion in transactions have passed through our system, which is a lot of freaking transactions. But Keller Williams was like, hey, I see something here, the president of Keller Williams. And it took a little while to get the deal going and everything else. But that, we swung for the fences. We were like, what the hell? Yeah. We've almost died like 3-4 times. Let's go for it, right? And we had a working product. And so they integrated into their e-transaction system and made all 80,000 of their agents use it. All 80,000. And the cool thing is so if anybody's got a startup, this is how dotloop was successful. 80,000 agents like that using the platform. But then 80% of the work that they did was with other brokerages. And once they learned our platform, they were like, I'm not faxing this shit. Digitize it, right? Like, I've got it here. Just sign up for dotloop. And then they were getting people to sign up.
Gotcha.
So like 90...
made their work easier, right?
Yeah, like 90% of every agent in the country is signed up to use dotloop. Not all of them do it, probably half of them.
Gotcha.
But because half the deals are done. But Keller Williams was like 100% bought in. Then they got everybody else bought in. RE/MAX eventually got bought in. Yeah. And the thing in real estate is you've got some corporate groups like Keller Williams who can just globally make every one of their agents use it. And then you've got RE/MAX, which is all franchised. Gotcha. So they could recommend they use it, but there was no, so we still had to have a sales staff, we still had to have a support staff, all that to go out and try to hustle it, right?
Gotcha. So talk about that. So the, what time was that Keller Williams timing with that?
That was probably 2010 maybe? 2011, yeah.
Gotcha. So from the month before to a month after that, talk about that transition period from sort of, I'm assuming it was kind of hyper growth.
Oh, hell, man. Yeah. And at this time, like, I wasn't on full time. So I was still the agency.
Gotcha.
And then we moved from, we had an office in Reed Hartman, Pfeiffer Road kind of area up there. And then we moved to Longworth Hall. Well, Reversed Out was already in Longworth Hall. So I was on the 3rd floor, and then dotloop moved in on the 4th floor. Gotcha. So Alex Allison, Austin's brother, he was our head of marketing, right out of college. This is like, this dude's had a dream job ever since he got out of college. But he would come down like every day, and we were always doing something for a conference, or there was always something they needed. So he'd come down, and I had to stop everything I was doing and help out dotloop. But yeah, man, I mean, inner workings of it from that point on was just kind of like, I'd go up there every once in a while and be like, hey, how are things going? Yeah. We're almost out of money. Or, hey, we just signed this other brokerage. Or, it was like either really good or really bad, right? And I think what Austin was really good at is his attitude is just straight up like this all the time.
Gotcha.
Like, he's never too high, he's never too low. He's always just kind of like straight up even, right? But nothing phases the dude. I mean, like, no like negativity really phases him, So
Gotcha.
Having that kind of an attitude when you're when you've got a startup, I think is key. The team, your core team, key, like to any kind of success when it comes to doing a startup.
What about talk about the acquisition? I'm sure there's always some sort of surprises and ahas, not necessarily bad or good or indifferent, but that's kind of the holy grail, right? When you're doing a high growth startup. Talk about some of those surprises, learnings, what have you, with not only just the acquisition but the process of the acquisition. There's a lot of
oh man, yeah, you let the lawyers take care of that. Yeah. So the whole process of the Dave Willenbrand, he took care of a lot of that stuff. I mean, it's so complex, and I'm telling you, like, you never just try to do things on your own, like, managing your money, all that kind of stuff. I mean, there's people out there who can do it, I guess, and still have like a full-time job or something else. But it's just you let professional people do a lot of that stuff. So when it came to like the acquisition and things like that, I literally got a call from Austin like, hey, let's meet at the chamber. He's like, we've got an announcement to make. And then me and Matt and Austin and then all of our investors show up and they're like, hey, we got an offer on the table for Zillow to buy us. And that wasn't the only offer we ever had. Yeah. Zillow approached us before that, and there was other companies that approached us.
Right.
And
so what was that decision-making process from passing on some of the ones, or maybe?
I mean, that was mainly Austin's decision. I mean, he still controlled a majority of the company, so a lot of the decisions were him and the board, obviously.
Right.
But I mean, the guy held out. I mean, he wasn't gonna. I mean, the idea was to IPO at some point.
Right.
That was the main goal, right? But in order to IPO, you need I think it's 50. This is what they tell us. You needed $50 million a year in revenue before they'll look at you for an IPO.
Right.
But we were already talking to firms about it. The problem is once you get in, if you're in an industry and, we just did the contract portion of it, there's only so big you can get inside of that vertical before you have to like move into another one.
Right.
And so we thought about it and, hey, how much money would it cost for us to take what we've built and move that into something else? And at the point we were thinking about doing that, you had other other contract companies and things like that out there, digital contract companies, and they were already in those spaces. So the best deal on the table was the whole Zillow thing, and
gotcha.
They just took it.
That's cool. So post acquisition, talk about that transition from okay, I've been doing this for part time, and then probably eventually full time for a while. I know you're a big ideas guy, and I like to have your hands on a lot of different things. How did you decide about what to do next?
So the biggest messed up thing is just coming from the background I came from, like, what do I do with this money now?
Yeah.
Like, seriously, I mean, it's a huge thing. It's like, I had no idea. And then all of a sudden I had like all these freaking companies calling me like, hey, Adam, like Merrill Lynch here, or whatever it was, and they're just all calling you, banks and everybody else. Yeah. And I traded stocks and stuff on my own for a while and everything, but like, it got real, like real. It wasn't like $5-6 grand I'm working with, right? And I'm like, what do I do with this? So I think like after the transition, it was like, okay, what do I just put in the market? Because obviously the market, these guys, the banks are about like, oh no, you don't want to do anything else with it. Right. Stick it in our thing, right? Just put all the money in with us, right? You, right? Yeah. But I talked to Brad Zapp, who runs Kinetic Ventures over in Northern Kentucky, and he's like, I was still renting at Longworth Hall. I had a little co-working space at the time, so I had people actually subleasing for me at Longworth Hall, and I was spending like $3,500 a month. And Brad's like, man, there's a building down the street, just buy it. And it was an old Knights of Columbus building, so it looks like a castle. It's like 20,000 square feet. Mr. Steve Weathers is in there. So yeah. And it was, it's kind of old-fashioned. The last time it was updated was in the 90s. But solid building, big. It's like the centrifuge now of Northern Kentucky. Yeah. So I was like, okay, I could buy this building I think I bought it for like 580 grand, right? And, paid cash for it. But then I went and got money out of it so I could do the rehab work, and it's costing me less than Longworth Hall was.
Gotcha.
So now I've got a building. I've got people like Steve who know what the hell they're doing. Guys like Troy at Lampros that are all in the space with me. Yeah, no, Nathan's out now. He's doing some new stuff now. But so now I got all these guys in my space that can help support Reversed Out.
Right.
I don't have to pay employees. Like, I've got contractors. The whole freaking place is contractors. And I can just pull people with different skill sets in anytime I want, depending on the project that comes in.
Gotcha. So
I decided to take some of the money and invest it in another business, right? Invest it in a business I already had that was successful.
Gotcha. So what about, tell me about the story of the insight that led to CPROP. So kind of transition.
So it's kind of a build on dotloop.
Okay.
So me and Steve and Luke, my buddy Luke, and my friend Jeremy. Jeremy's brother used to work for like the CIA and something, I don't know. And he's got some crazy, like, I don't know, he can go to like Write Pat and stuff and just walk in. But anyway, he told us about Ethereum when it was at like $6, $7, something like that. But he didn't been investing in Ethereum. He invested in Litecoin really early.
When is this?
Early 2017.
Okay, gotcha.
January, something like that.
Okay.
And he was like, man, you guys want to buy this Ethereum thing? He was like, we're like, how do you even do this? And we were like, go on Coinbase and set up an account. So we were buying it, and it kept going up, and we're like, shit, it keeps going up. Throw some more money at it. Right? And then before you knew it, it was $1,400. And me and Luke and our buddy Sandy, who's in New York, and Steve, we all kind of just were throwing money into it. And we were like, dude, these ICO things are awesome. Like, we're investing in them. And they were just like shooting up like 20, 30 times, right? I'm like, man, this is awesome. Like, it can't last forever, but how do we do one of these?
Right.
So we went through all of our skills, and they both worked at did a lot of work with Jones Lang LaSalle, which is a big commercial real estate company. Mm-hmm. And we were like, well, we already know how to do smart contracts. Like, why don't we do international? Like, why don't we figure out a way to do international real estate transactions and digitize the whole process? So that's what we did. That's what we're doing now. Yeah. So we're kind of building it out. Steve's working on a roadmap for us. And we've raised a little over $3.5 million from all around the world. Can't raise any money for an ICO in the United States because the the U.S. government pretty much sucks. And I found out recently that even if you're an expat in another country, you still have to pay U.S. taxes. The only two countries are Eritrea and the U.S. that make you pay taxes if you live in another country. You still got to pay U.S. taxes. Or you just say, I'm not American anymore and live wherever you want. But so you can't escape taxes. You can't escape the government. It's kind of crazy. So you just can't raise money in the U.S. So I've traveled all over the place because we're trying to connect with investors. So we're going to all these blockchain events, these crypto events, trying to meet with investors. A lot of them right now, the hottest spot, if you want to raise money for a startup in the crypto space, is South Korea, by far. Gotcha. South Korea and Japan.
That room was packed when you
Oh, it was crazy. It was crazy. So we've been doing all these weird growth hacking kind of techniques. And what works really well are meetups.
Really?
So Luke, who I grew up with in Price Hill, I didn't know him at the time growing up. He was older than us. But him and his brother knows Mandarin now, moved to China, met a Korean girl, moved to Busan. So they're living in Busan now. So he's our CPROP Korea office.
Gotcha.
So in order to raise money in Korea, they want you to be there. Like they want you to actually be there so they can like walk in and be like, hey, how's my investment going, right? Gotcha. Very similar to here. Like nobody outside of Cincinnati invests in Cincinnati companies. It's freaking rare. Like I think dotloop is one of the only ones. We got money from Trinity in the Valley, but it just barely ever happens because people like to be close to their investments. And unfortunately, money here kind of sucks. Like real money, you know, like nobody's going to write you like a $5 million check here. You're in your angel stage. Right. Like we raised $3.5 million in like a month and a half overseas. And it was because it's in the ICO, it's a blockchain thing, you know, it's like sexy right now. And they just want to know that you're there. So we got an office in Korea. We've been back and forth to China. The problem is China's putting the clamps down on crypto. The problem, most governments and international banks and things like that, they don't like crypto because it kind of goes against their business model, right? And crypto, their control, right? Like they like to manipulate money. And it's just the way it is. I mean, if you're a central bank, you control economies by manipulating the currency, right? And you look at places like Zimbabwe. I mean, they wouldn't even use their money for toilet paper right now. Venezuela. I mean, you guys have heard it. I mean, Venezuela's currency's in the trash. If they would have had Bitcoin this whole time, they'd have made money. Yeah. So the thing with Bitcoin is there's only a limited amount. There's 21 million that'll ever be in circulation. So it's a deflationary currency where our money is constantly being printed. So it's inflationary. Gotcha. So your money in your pocket at the rate the government's printing money right now, by the time you leave here, it's going to be worth less, right? So how do we create a currency that actually can be used and transferred all over the world? For you to transfer your US dollars into euros, you got to go to the bank. There's an exchange rate, which you're going to be on the losing end of that exchange rate. Right. Plus, you're going to get a fee for exchanging your money over. Right. So there's a huge penalty if you want to do Western Union. Say you're a Hispanic guy, you want to send some money back to Mexico, you got to go to Western Union, you get raked over to Kohl's in fees. Bitcoin, 10-minute transaction, send it, and it's just like 0.25% that it costs you.
So is there more of a, let's just talking blockchain in general, is there more of a play in the enterprise versus the kind of the consumer play with blockchain in general?
I'd say blockchain right now, the enterprise thing is taken off because of IBM and the whole Hyperledger thing that they've got in Fabric. And IBM was really tricky with what they did. So they invented Hyperledger. Well, they didn't really invent it because it's a blockchain technology, but they created this thing. Then they handed it over to the Linux Foundation, right, which is this open source stuff. And they're like, here, you guys maintain it, but now we're just going to consult. So they're getting paid off the consulting, and they don't even have to support the product. Gotcha. Is that right? That's pretty much the way it goes. That's right. So they don't even have to build the software anymore because they handed it off to an open source foundation. Gotcha. So, but when I went to DC, all these big corporations are using the Hyperledger blockchain because it's IBM, right? And it's trusted. Yeah. So there's all these guys out here trying to build all these different crypto blockchain technologies, but IBM's just like, knows them, right? You guys are insignificant. We're just going to go walk into Microsoft and sell them our shit.
Gotcha. So we were talking before about, and I want to talk a little bit about this, and then we'll turn it over to you guys for some Q&A. As you mentioned, money's kind of tight here. It's kind of tough to raise in Cincinnati. Is this an opportunity? Does this crypto and ICOs specifically give us an opportunity to to get more investment here, to bring more investment here? Can you talk through?
Oh, sure. So, I mean, I've been doing this since early 2017 in the crypto blockchain space, and I probably watch 4 hours of crypto shows every day. Seriously, like it's like I'm addicted to it. I got a problem. And I stay up on all the news, everything. And which is why we started Kentucky Blockchain Alliance.
Yeah.
Because state of Kentucky, who's moving to Kentucky? Right? Like, okay, not to make fun of Kentucky, but like, for real. Like, if you're a tech, like, say you're just this awesome Rails developer, and some company, some startup in Kentucky's like, yo, you should move to Kentucky, and I'll pay you $150,000 a year, right? And then they're like, okay, well, how much money have you raised? $300,000, right? In my angel stage. Nobody's moving here.
Yeah.
Right? And then, and it's not anything sexy. It's just another fucking startup, right? But if you could say, hey, I got this blockchain startup. We did an ICO, raised 20 mil. You want to come to Cincinnati, or you want to come to Northern Kentucky? Right. Yeah, you got 20 mil in the bank, right? That's a different story, right? That's a whole different conversation. I could frame that conversation a lot better than I could frame the, hey, I got $300,000, right? So every state, every city in this country is like, we're going to be the next Silicon Valley. No, you're not, right? What are you going to do? The exact same thing every state's doing. The exact same thing every city's doing, which is like, oh, check us out. They try to position themselves as this tech thing. Right. Look, we think we're a tech city. Amazon took a shit on us. First round. Like, they took one look at our proposal and was like, right in the trash, right? And for some reason, Columbus is still in it, which I don't get. It's a giant flat city and it looks like a huge suburb, but whatever. So I just can't handle the Columbus people. I'm just like, we're the biggest city in Ohio. No, you're not. No, you're not. Okay. So, it's just inferiority complex. I mean, yeah. But anyway, so what if we had 5 companies here, like CPROP, that went all over the world, traveled, right? Raised a couple $100,000 for travel and stuff like that to pay for it, but could just go out and raise 20 mil and bring that back to Cincinnati, right? From overseas. Every bit of money we've raised is from a lot of it from Italy, Germany, South Korea, Hong Kong. That money's not coming to Cincinnati.
Yeah.
How are those people? They don't even care about your Cincinnati startup. But because it's an ICO and it's in the blockchain space and the business model is around international real estate transactions, now they care. Now you're bringing money into our region that would not normally come into our region. And I could say one thing about Columbus. Jobs Ohio has actually done a lot with blockchain. Recently, there were some announcements where the state of Ohio is actually doing this push and recognizing the fact that blockchain is a revolutionary technology, right, and it's going to change things, and that we should pay attention to it. We want to do the same thing in Kentucky that we're doing in Ohio.
Gotcha. So along those lines, last question. So what are some of the biggest challenges of really making, getting over the hump in terms of general adoption and sort of global adoption? Well, not just global adoption, but more specifically U.S. adoption. So
blockchain, I don't think it's a problem.
But
I think they're
ICOs though. And
with ICOs, you got a lot of haters. So there's a lot of people that there's VCs that are out there. Like, I mean, you just heard the guy from Techstars.
Yeah.
He was like, yeah, we're starting up our own blockchain thing, right? Yeah. I think the problem with the ICOs is there were so many scams, right? They kind of shot themselves in the foot.
Yeah.
But I see so many parallels from the .com boom that I see with this. It's just people that honestly don't know what the fuck they're talking about have something to say. And it drives me absolutely insane. Old dudes, like people that they're from traditional finance or they've come from this traditional tech background or whatever, and they're like, oh, those are stupid. Blockchain's the real technology. Well, what made blockchain interesting? It was crypto. It's Bitcoin. Nobody would give a shit about blockchain right now if it wasn't for Bitcoin being like, hey, there's this revolutionary technology that was built on blockchain, right? And they're like, oh, by the way, let's start looking at this blockchain thing for other stuff, right? What's this decentralized ledger all about, right? So they started investigating it. But if it wasn't for the currency, nobody would care. And then people evolved that into a form of fundraising. So essentially it's like Kickstarter for your startup using a token. So you buy a token from me with, a lot of times you expect that to go up in value over time. Right. So essentially here's the basics of our token model, right? Our token model represents data. So every time a transaction, imagine dotloop. We've had $4 trillion worth of transactions happen on dotloop. And I couldn't even tell you how many transactions that was, but when you create a token that you sell, right, to raise money, you're not giving up any equity at all. We've raised $3.5 million giving up this much equity.
Gotcha.
So you sell a token, you need to give that token some reason to exist. Why is this token relevant? Why am I buying this token? What does it have to do in your platform besides raising money? Well, every time a transaction happens on our platform, somebody from China wants to buy a house in the United States. Somebody in San Francisco wants to buy a house in Ohio. However that happens, that is valuable information. And from the signing of the document, the deal, till the close, we've got all that information. Not the personal information, like who this person is, but we know that a house in Cincinnati sold for $149,000 in the 45202 area code, and the demographics of the people were this, right? So we're collecting all this data around every single transaction. Well, we're going to take a token, hash to it, because honestly, a blockchain is a terrible database. You can't really store anything. I mean, it's a hash. It's just like an address to more data, right? So off-chain, we're going to store all the data about that transaction, but there's going to be a token that represents all that data.
Right.
Every time a transaction happens, boop, token gets stored away, token gets stored away, token gets stored away. Well, what happens when you reach dotloop's level and 50% of all real estate transactions are happening on our platform globally? That data is going to be worth a shit ton, right? What platform? What's important about any platform? The people, what makes it valuable, the amount of users you have, and the data you're collecting.
Right.
That's it, right? You don't even have to monetize it if you've got enough people and you've got enough data that you can just sell, right? Like you don't have to charge your users or anything. I mean, Facebook, right? So all of a sudden we've got 500,000 tokens locked up, right? Representing 500,000 bits of data, and they're constantly being added. What if we created a dashboard that, say, the US government wanted to tap into, so they could get real-time data on everything that's selling at any time?
Gotcha.
And then you could run reports on the data. So you could say, okay, I want to know, because I own a development company, how many houses over $300,000 sold in Southern California, in this zip code, by people in this demographic between the ages of 40 and 50. I could run a report on that and get returned in real time that information, right?
Powerful, yeah.
So then I can use that to make business decisions.
Gotcha.
So what's that data worth? I don't know yet, but when we start selling it, right? Hopefully a lot.
Yeah.
So I want to sell that data. All of those tokens, say there's 100,000 tokens there, and we're getting paid $1 million a year for the data. Tokens were $10, right?
Yep.
So now you give a value, the market gave a value to the token and a reason for the token to exist, because now our other token, which is what people buy as an investment, you have to own, say, 10,000 tokens to have a node. And if you have a node, you get dividends off of whatever we make on the data.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha. No,
that's kind of how it works.
Hopefully it's worth a lot
I hope so. Shit, we're putting a lot of money into it. So.
All right. Well, look, I want to hear from you guys. I'll spend a few minutes here doing some Q&A, and then we'll give you guys some more time to network a little bit. Who's got questions for Adam? Yes.
About like 8 or 9 months ago, I talked with a blockchain company called Status. They're like the
Status
operating system, like mobile operating system for Ethereum.
Yep.
And like they were like wanting me to convince them to contribute, but they were like, "Well, we'll pay you in tokens." So like they could spend that.
Status is legit. Yeah.
And so I'm curious, like, say someone has an early stage blockchain startup and they're trying to attract other developers that contribute, basically some code. Do they offer, like, do you offer people like, hey, I'll give you some tokens and some? Oh,
for sure. Yeah, we've got people. Mm-hmm. Yep. So a lot of our advisors are getting tokens. So we pay people with. It depends. You want to get cash? You want to get tokens? I'm actually connected to Malta, which is one of the probably top blockchain regions in the world right now. Them and Zug, Switzerland, and Hong Kong and Vietnam. Yeah. So, well, I'm doing something for a company that's actually trying to bring a gambling solution to Africa.
Oh,
So whatever about the culture there, they're big into gambling, they're big into gaming. So it's a gambling kind of thing that they're trying to do. But anyway, I'm just going to get paid in tokens.
Really?
Yeah. So I told them, I said, they need a sales deck and all this. But once you get into this community, it's really, really small, but it's global.
gotcha.
Once you get into this community, I mean, depending on what you do for a living, if you're a marketing person, I mean, Cincinnati's got marketing people all over the place, right? If you're a marketing guy, they need branding. Like some of these startups need branding. This is like .com 1992,
Gotcha.
right? Before it really became a thing and before that bubble burst, that's what this is. Like these ICOs are very much like the .com whole thing, like the whole .com thing.
Gotcha.
So, but yeah, you get paid in tokens, you get paid in whatever, but status is legit. Like that's a good spot to be in. Yeah. I mean, 90% of all these ICOs are going to fail. Like some of them are just awful. And there's just like 15-year-old kids, right? And or some dude in Vietnam who's got like Ryan Gosling's picture. I don't know if you saw that. Ryan Gosling's picture was on the advisory board of one of these ICOs at one point. So that was really funny. He had like a Chinese name, but it was Ryan Gosling's picture though.
Nice.
And yeah, people show up all the time. People from like IBM's pictures will be on there and they'll be like, yo, take my picture down. But there's scams everywhere. That's the problem. So I think it's going to get more legitimized.
Gotcha. What else? Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm also from Price Hill, but
How many times you got jumped?
almost once, but my dad came around the corner at the right time.
That's good.
It was right on Elbron.
Saved himself a hospital bill.
Yeah, it was on Elbron.
God, that wasn't Adam, was it?
Yeah, I know.
Oh man. But anyways, the universe kind of presented me like a question to ask you today. So basically, the startup concept rewards users for speaking kind and positive words in social media. And basically it uses a technology that quantifies the meaning behind words and also relationship to other words. So my question is, how secure do you see blockchain to the average user? And have you ever seen blockchain integrate with AI to basically achieve and promote a sense of security necessary for achieving usage of the platform in general?
Yeah, so blockchain, the idea behind blockchain is security. It's trust. When there's lack of trust between two parties or multiple parties, then you need a blockchain, right? This is why Walmart, for example, I'll give you an example. So Walmart had a mango, and they wanted to track that mango from when it got pulled off the tree in Costa Rica or wherever it was, the truck that it got on. You know, it went through like 5 or 6 different logistics companies before it got to Kroger, say, or before it got to Walmart. So traditionally, this is the guy from Walmart, his words, in order for them to look back through their traditional ways of tracking that stuff, it would have took 2.5 days to find out where that thing was, right? It took 2.2 seconds on a blockchain. The reason a blockchain is more trust and more secure is that it's immutable. So as soon as you commit something, a transaction to a blockchain, and all of the nodes on that blockchain validate that transaction, it can never be changed. It's locked up in the chain forever, so everyone can see it. So when that mango got picked off that tree by Farmer Bob, that got tracked, locked up. We know Farmer Bob, from now on, we know Farmer Bob picked that fruit. Then it went to, some logistics company, onto a truck. We know that truck picked it up. So all of those things can never be changed. So the benefit is, what if that fruit got somebody sick? I can now track it back and find out, okay, the fruit in Pittsburgh wasn't sick. This wasn't sick, so you never run into a Tylenol situation where you have to go across the country and take everything off the shelves. But what you're saying is AI, right? This is the beauty of it. Blockchain alone can only do essentially what I just said. That's the benefit. That's a big benefit of it. But what if I was in Whole Foods and I'm some hipster dude who's like, oh, I only buy like single source coffee, right? I could pick that bag of coffee up and use something like, just scan the product and say a video comes up, augmented reality video of the world, and it shows me yesterday that coffee was in Costa Rica and today it was here, right? I could validate everything with blockchain and know that it's true by using and pairing that with another technology. IoT, huge. This building, right? If you have a maintenance guy in this building and he replaces has to replace, say, like the motor in the furnace, right? If you had an IoT device that said, I'm shaking the wrong way, you need to replace me, maintenance guy goes down there, you order it, it gets tracked on a blockchain, it knows you ordered it from Amazon, and it knows how long it took to get there, and it knows when you took the old device off and put the new device on. Now, say Jones Lang LaSalle comes here and wants to buy this building. You hand them a blockchain record of every maintenance task that was completed instead of a clipboard that your maintenance guy's been writing on for the last 2 years. Hopefully. Right? You know that blockchain is factual because the IoT device knew that it got replaced, and then a new IoT device came on track. And I know, by the way, that IoT device has a 5-year warranty on it from Amazon. Gotcha. Right? So that's how, say, IoT would play into blockchain.
So basically, despite the whole big, scary blockchain realm and concept, the fact that it can be distilled down into giving people certainty into their transactions is essentially enough to overcome any confusion about blockchain or what the hell it is.
Exactly. So points, say you're a gamer, right? And there's a tournament or whatever. You track all that stuff on a blockchain potentially, right? Some data, there's only so much you can really put into the blockchain because it can only handle so many transactions right now and all this other stuff. So some data can be stored off chain, but what is in the blockchain could reference what's off chain. But because it's in the blockchain that it's true. So keeping parties from going back in time and changing that data, it just makes it impossible. You can't do it. Unless you have 51% of the network, like maybe Bitmain has for certain things. But it's certainty, it's immutability, and it's trust when you deal with. So think about that when you're talking about virtual reality. How would that benefit virtual reality, right? The way IoT is benefited by it, and the way some of these other technologies can be partnered with blockchain.
So, good question. A question?
Yeah, as far as, let's say someone had an idea, they just wanted to test it out. You could probably answer this as well. If someone had an idea, blockchain idea, would it be wise to mix truffle and meteor? Have you heard of a decentralized application basically? And my question is, what are you using for your tech platform? How did you spin up your MVP?
Yeah, so a majority of our stuff, just because we want to get to market now instead of waiting for blockchain to catch up, most of our platform's centralized, right? So there's decentralized and there's centralized, right? A centralized server means that all your information is on a computer somewhere. Or it could be on some kind of an array or something like that, but it's on a computer somewhere. Where a decentralized system means that there's little bits of that all over this computer network. So Napster, if you were downloading a song on Napster back in the day, you downloaded a little bit from all these computers. You didn't download that one whole song from one centralized computer. So that makes it really freaking difficult to track where you got that information from. Right. So because the blockchain is not that scalable right now, Ethereum only handles 15 transactions a second, where Swift handles hundreds of thousands of transactions a second. There's only so much you could do with the blockchain. So when you're thinking about a company, you got to think, there's actually charts out there. Should I use blockchain, right? So just look at that chart and go through the yes or no's. And it's do you need a database? No, you don't need blockchain, right? That's the first thing. But think about with our system, all that data that's being collected around that user information, that gets stored off-chain in a centralized server. But like I was telling you earlier, if you're doing a transaction overseas with a lawyer in Turkey, and I've got to give you escrow money, right? You're this Turkish guy. I've got to give you $5,000 down on this house so that they'll take it off the market, right? 20% of the time, we've actually got a partnership with a company in Turkey. They said 15 to 20% of the time, that dude is going to run off with your money, and you're never going to see him again. You're in America. He's in Turkey. What are you going to do? Come to Turkey? It's civil war like last month.
Yeah.
So he's going to run off with your money. If I had a smart contract in place just for that portion of this real estate transaction, then I could have that money held. Neither one of us can access it until we sign these contracts or until I revoke on the deal and then the money gets returned back to me. But that's a blockchain-based technology, smart contracts, that could be used just for that portion of a real estate transaction.
And last question, as far as like spaces and verticals in the blockchain space in general, do you have any ideas that someone like could start a company? Like what do you think is ripe right now? What spaces are ripe that
I think just being a blockchain developer, like a Solidity developer or something like that, would be awesome if you could add that to your resume. I think that would be really smart. I think just understanding blockchain and how it works and when to use it and when not to use it. Because you can't just be like, oh, I'm just going to be a blockchain developer, right? Like there's work out there, but you still need to know how to use, normal technologies and, MySQL databases and things. You're not just going to, use blockchain for everything. But having that skill set, I think, is really powerful.
Okay.
You have questions? Orange shirt in front, we'll get you Steve next. You go ahead. Okay. So my question was around, private blockchains within a company. Do you see, like, say, a CPG company, for example, gaming, for example, they have so many suppliers and, huge logistics. Do you see that, sort of these companies adopting blockchain or?
Oh yeah, for sure. They are right now. So Kroger, Walmart, all those guys have a deal with this blockchain thing going on right now where they all kind of invested in this blockchain for their supply chain, right? Because they're dealing with untrusted suppliers. And if something happens to, say, a product that P&G makes, I know they're not doing food anymore, but say a whole bunch of people get rashes all of a sudden because they changed the formula of Tide. Well, what caused that, right? If I'm one of the suppliers and I might be guilty of it, I might change something about the history of where my stuff came from. But if everything was locked up in a blockchain, nobody can change anything. It's committed forever. So if they had people started getting rashes in Pittsburgh all of a sudden, which hopefully that happens, but everybody in Pittsburgh starts getting rashes, then they could say, oh, wow, okay. So if I look back through the supply chain, I could see that everyone else in the country got this specific detergent, this palm oil or whatever, from this part of Thailand, where the Pittsburgh version came from somewhere in, Beijing or whatever.
Right.
This is the problem. And so now I could track back really quickly, same as the mango example with Walmart, 2.2 seconds. They were able to go back in the supply chain and find whatever they wanted. So private blockchains, I think when you say private blockchain, it's not really private because you want to involve other parties. Because the only really reason you're going to use it is because of the immutability and the fact that people can't change it. So inside of a company, if someone said they did something and that task was somehow tracked on a blockchain, that could make sense if you don't trust your own employees, which, probably shouldn't. But you could prove things and there's no question that this is fact. So if you think about it in that way and then look at the organization and say, what problems do we have in the organization where we need immutability, where we need a record that can't be questioned? That's what I think, like a private blockchain. But if you talk to the blockchain community, they laugh. As soon as you say private blockchain, they're like, private blockchain. Like it just defeats the whole purpose of a blockchain, to have a private blockchain. So.
Steve, good question.
Yeah, I did. So Adam, your experiences have brought you to this unique footprint of like marketing tech and fintech. And you've answered a couple of questions tonight where you talked about blockchain technology augmented by AI and IoT that leans into fintech solutions in terms of like what this gentleman just asked about, the validity of the supply chain, et cetera. What about leaning towards your marketing side? What about blockchain augmented by AI and IoT for content creation?
Oh, there's people out there doing that. Yeah, there's people out there doing that. So look at, oh God, what's the social media website? Steam It.
Oh, yeah.
Steam It. Exactly. So people are getting paid in Steam It tokens, in Steam, when they write posts and people thumb up or whatever. I think it's a thumb, isn't it? Like people say thumbs up, then they donate a little bit of Steam tokens to the content provider. So the person can actually get paid like in real time for creating content. And valuable content, you know, and it's mostly everybody that's getting paid right now are all writing stuff about blockchain and crypto. So if you've got some cool insight on blockchain and crypto, you can make some steam right now. But yeah, that's totally out there. And then Basic Attention Token, look into Basic Attention Token. They're tied in with this browser called the Brave browser. And you get paid essentially in BAT to look at ads on the Brave browser. So ideally, this is like pie in the sky, like this is utopian, like what's going to happen to everybody. Everyone's going to own their own data at some point. You own all your data. Facebook doesn't own your data. Facebook buys your data off of you, right? Because here, why would Facebook do that? That's crazy, right? Like, why would Facebook do it? Well, Uber doesn't own your car.
Right.
It also doesn't own the maintenance problems that come with your car, right? You know, there's a lot of things they avoid by not owning that, right? So right now, what happened to Facebook? Facebook lost how many billions of dollars in a day because they were screwing around with people's data. At some point, maybe they don't want to own your data. Maybe, you know, none of these companies want to own your data anymore because it's too much of a liability. So you own your own data, just like you own your Uber car, right? And then they just lease that off of you and give you a little something for it. So they're the ones all the advertisers are coming to, right? But if they can give you 10 cents for your data, but they're making $1 off of it, and they don't have to store any of that, how much? That's crazy data, right? Yeah. But you could store all your information in a private wallet, and it could be represented by a token. So.
Yeah, good question. Any others? Again, Adam will be around for a little bit longer, right? To network. But any questions like for the group here? Or?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I have a question. Adam, thank you for giving this talk to us. A story similar to mine. I grew up in College Hill, graduated from Aiken, and had a lot of similar experiences.
With the Shea Brothers up in College Hill, yeah.
However, you know, I had worked with some organizations that was kind of anti-tech, and leading up to now, I kind of feel like I'm behind the time. What do you suggest for a person like me, besides hanging out with you and Steve, to get up to speed?
Yeah, what's your background? Like, what's your
marketing?
Oh, marketing. Oh, yeah. I mean, any agency. I mean, Cincinnati's full of marketing agencies, and I would suggest. I mean, Steve and I worked at Possible together, and super valuable connections. And I wouldn't just say the work was valuable. Like, we learned a little bit. I'd say, we just using our skills that we already had. What was valuable to me was the network that I built. So I wouldn't be able to do Reversed Out right now if I hadn't worked at Possible and Possible Bridge and Rockfish and places like that, because I met people. And there's so much turnover at those companies. Those people who are, managing a Conagra brand inside of Possible, they're going to leave. And then they're going to go be the marketing director of some company that, is manufacturing something, right? Yeah. Then they're going to call you and be like, hey man, I remember you were good at this. Do you mind? And you were freelancing. So let it be known, you do a little something on the side. And then they call you up. Every one of my clients, it's just all word of mouth. I don't advertise, don't do anything. It's just, they just show up from 4 years ago. I'm like, hey, Adam, remember me? Oh, I'm down in Miami now working for whatever, some shipping and receiving company, and we need a website. I'm like, damn, I never thought you would ever call me. But that's the value of it, is the network that you build. I'm telling you, networking is the number one thing that just in my whole entrepreneurial career, it's just relationships. Relationships are the most valuable thing you can have. And just knowing that from just growing up broke with no network and no know-how and no knowing of what to do. Some of these kids are born and they got an uncle who's a lawyer, right? So he's like, hey, boy, you should grow up and be a lawyer. Here's the steps you have to take. I didn't have that shit, right? Like most people don't have that. And what I learned is that you need that. You need a network. You need to be cool. Like just be cool. Like be yourself most of the time. One of the biggest problems I have, and I mean, you were at P&G, right? So, we're at GE. But yeah, so, okay, you don't have the answer. But, I meet some of these people like from P&G, and no offense to P&G, or any of these other big co's. I'm not just going to single out P&G. Big co's in general. You meet people, and it's just weird how hesitant they are to open up. It's just so strange. It doesn't seem human. It's weird. They're all dressed the same, and they all have the same kind of attitude, and it's like they're standoffish about something. Like they don't really have anything to hide, but it's almost like they're afraid to let people know who they are. When you're an entrepreneur, you don't do that. Like hey, what's up? You could be you.
Here's where I screwed up today.
Yeah, you could be you. Like, yeah, for real. Like, but you can be who you are, and you don't have to be this like automaton that's like, I'm going to work at 8 o'clock and work until 6:30, and it's the worst possible punishment I think you could have. I mean, just shoot me and get it over with. I mean, I don't want to deal with that.
For some people.
Some people are cool with it. We need Indians, man. Like how many chiefs are there? We got to have Indians, dude.
Just kind of starting that entrepreneurial journey, is the fear of somebody's like taking your idea and running with it like valid, or do you just say, you know what, I know this is like unique to me because like I took two parts of myself and blended it together, and like they don't know what I know. Like, is that fear real, or should I just be like fully open with everybody about it?
Yeah, I wouldn't. No, people are trash at implementing. They suck. How many ideas do we see all the time, Steve? Everybody's got an idea. You know how many people actually go through with it? How many companies in Cincinnati have sold for $100 million? One, two. Two. There's that one up in Mason, DNA company. It was around like, 15 years or something. Yeah, they sold for $350, right? So,
not quite, yeah.
You know why? Because they stuck with it, right? Nobody sticks with it. I don't know why. You got kids, you got, I don't know, a partner that nags the hell out of you. You got I don't know, man. Life happens, right? Like life happens, and there's only so much you could do. And, you try to balance all this stuff. And at the end of the day, your idea suffers. Your dream suffers. Your dream's the first thing to go, right? When you got to pay your bills. And it's just, unfortunately, that's how it is, which is what leads people to just, I want the security of a job. But there's no security in a job. Like, you're going to get cut. Like, I seriously, like, in the agency world, you could be the dopest person coming in working 80 hours a week. You know what if they lose a client? If P&G pulls a brand? You're done. You're done. You're part of that team? Sorry. Hopefully Rockfish is hiring. So, I mean, this is the issue. And it's like, your only guarantee is you. Nobody cares about you. Like, nobody does, right? Everybody cares about themselves. We're in America. And I've been all over the world. Dude, Americans care about themselves. Like other countries, Korea, it's the group, right? It's the group. You sacrifice for the group. Japan, you sacrifice for the group. In America, this is capitalism. This is pure capitalism. If you hear somebody complaining that somebody's holding them down or somebody's not letting them, no, you are the only person with the power to hold you down. For real. Like, you are the only person. And when you have an idea, you fucking do it. Like, don't sit around and be like, oh, maybe I'll do this, or, dude, share it with people. Get feedback. That's more valuable than the fear that they're going to take your idea and run with it. Dude, they've got 5 ideas. You know what I'm saying? Like, they've got 5, 10 ideas. Dude, I want to do the Kool-Aid spoon, man. I got this Kool-Aid spoon. I want to, like, you just get some spoon made out of Kool-Aid. I haven't done it yet.
Kool-Aid spoon.
That's a prize right there.
Kool-Aid spoon, dude, right? Like, dude, Kool-Aid's the one. I grew up on Kool-Aid, man. Shit, I drank more Kool-Aid than water.
All right, one last question. We'll stick around for networking afterwards, but I want to make sure we remember that.
Yes, one question. What is like a good resource to sort of get, wrap my mind around blockchain, architecture, and generally, because I mean, you hear these things, but they're like all bits and pieces. If you're trying to sort of really look at it in a serious way, sometimes information is missing. Do you have any suggestions?
Oh, YouTube. Everything's on YouTube. I'm telling you, I don't know what I did before YouTube. And I just discovered it like last year. And I'm like 41, so I don't know, maybe like I'm old now and stuff. So, but now I don't even watch real TV. Like I canceled my Sony PlayStation Vue thing. I'm like, I don't even watch this shit. Like all I do is get into this rabbit hole on YouTube. And next thing you know, I'm watching stuff about like, you know, immigration in Sweden and shit. I'm like, what am I doing watching this? But they've got some awesome, just like basic how blockchain works on there. And there's actual like 2 hour long videos about it. But YouTube is like, for me, that's just how I learn. It's just like the way I learn would be better to just watch things than to sit and read stuff, right? I went to Cincinnati Public too. I'm not good.
Come tomorrow. There's the blockchain.
Yeah. So we got a blockchain group called Cincy Crypto. We changed it to Block Valley because we want to expand it a little more. And we're working with a group in Zug, Switzerland, which is also a valley, and in South Korea in Seoul, which is also a valley. So we've got this valley-to-valley connection thing that we're trying to do. Because there's money in Korea, there's developers and space and exposure to both Asia and Europe and Switzerland, and then there's ideas here. You wouldn't believe it. Like, back to capitalism. We kind of suck as people because we like only care about ourselves for the most part, right? People claim, I love everybody. No, you don't. You love yourself. So, but other countries, they care about the group and stuff, but because of that, they don't come up with ideas. I think that's why. But we're awesome at ideas here. They can't believe how we come up with ideas in some of these other countries, especially in Eastern Europe, because they lived under communism for so long. They weren't allowed to have ideas. And
exposure, right?
You didn't get it. There's no benefit to having an idea. It's like, oh, I got a great idea. I'm not going to share it with anybody.
Right.
I'm just going to go and hit a hammer on a nail for 8 hours, right? Like, so we're good at the ideas. So you have to have this global perspective. Like Cincinnati, it's like almost like we live in this little bubble here and everything has to happen here. But like, you got to get out. You got to go. You got to get outside of this country, man. You got to be in other places. I mean, there's awesome people everywhere, man. I mean, like India. India's got some great, awesome development talent and some companies that are on the come up right now. And Kiev, Ukraine. Awesome developers in Kiev, Ukraine. We went to Kiev. It's our first conference ever. We went to Kiev. And it's unbelievable, the income disparity in Kiev. Like literally, my buddy, he didn't have money for the cab. We pulled up to the front of this, of the conference place. Come to find out later, there were 8 billionaires. There were 200 people here. 8 of them were billionaires. My buddy didn't have cab money, and he's like trying to get the money out, and the cab driver's like, oh, I don't take credit cards. A Bentley was parked in like right next to him. A dude rolls down this window, and he's like, here, take this money. And he handed him a stack of fucking cash like this. And he was like, dude, I can't take your money. You're probably the fucking Russian mob. But he's like, I can't take your money. He's like, I'm a billionaire. And drove away.
An angel investor, right?
Crazy, dude. It's just like, we're like, where are we? And, you know, and then you got other people starving and getting shot by the Russians and all kinds of crap happening in eastern Ukraine. Yeah, man, it's just like global perspectives. Like, what are we good at? Like, what are we good at here? What are we good at in Cincinnati? I mean, honestly, I think Cincinnati needs to rebrand itself to be a logistics hub. I mean, you can get anywhere from Cincinnati within 2 days. And you've got all these people like, oh, we need to start doing this technology and that technology and doing that. Why don't we just like, what are we good at? What are we awesome at? We're good at branding and we're good at logistics. And we've got Kroger here and we got P&G here. You've got companies that have to deal with logistics stuff all the time.
Right.
You've got these people here, this is all they do all day. But they don't see the value in it. But with Amazon, online shipping, online retail, all that stuff on the come up, logistics is going through the roof. Dude, we got an airport that's halfway used.
It's the truth.
It could be a logistics hub for the country. And it's just sitting there half used,
right,
you know?
Right.
So, I mean, it's just crazy. I don't know.
We're going to pay attention to that. We're going to.
Yeah.
the next thing.
But it's the same with people. You guys all have skills. You have some kind of skill. And you sit around all day and you go to work, right? What makes an entrepreneur is the entrepreneur goes to work and they're like, what's broken here? Like, what can I fix? What can I make that I can make money off of, but that's going to make this company more efficient, make this company work better? You know, you go in, what Austin did with dotloop. He was faxing fucking contracts in 2008. Why am I faxing contracts? We had mobile phones still, you know? Like, I'm faxing contracts, you kidding me? So he said, there's an opportunity here. other people were like, oh, it's never going to work, right? But I don't know. They're probably dead or something now.
I don't know. All right, so CPROP.io, CPROP, is there a destination they can go to learn more about Kentucky Blockchain Alliance?
Yeah. There's blockvalley.us.
Gotcha.
But the CPROP.io, if you guys want to see like kind of like a blueprint for an ICO website, just go to CPROP.io. Every component on that website is kind of like boilerplate for any ICO website. And we haven't even done our ICO yet. Like, we haven't even done our public sale yet. And we're kind of scared because the freaking SEC and stuff. But we actually talked to them, and they said, if you don't raise money in the U.S., you're good.
Okay.
So.
Gotcha. Sounds good. And then CovWorx is about a Facebook page, right? If they want to know information about
Facebook page, CovWorx, yep. We're finishing up the co-working space right now. So I'm going to start taking photos and videos and stuff once everything's pretty. Gotcha. And then pop a website up there.
And at APK.
AP Koehler.
AP Koehler.
Twitter.
Is that Twitter. Big round of applause for Adam. Thank you very much. It's been awesome. Appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, man, for sure.